Hey, I'm Michael Cleveland, pastor at the River of Life Church in Abilene, Texas. You're about to watch a message from one of our weekend services. We hope that as you watch this message, that first you're challenged to take whatever the next step is in your relationship with Jesus Christ. We also hope that you're encouraged. You know, if you enjoy this message today, we would invite you to come and worship with us on a Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to support the mission of this church financially, you can do so by going to our website, www.theriverabilene.com, and clicking on the Giving tab. Enjoy this message. Have a great day. Thanks for being here today. I challenged everybody on week one of this series a couple weeks ago to be here all 4 weeks. Thank you to those of you who have accepted this challenge. If you've missed a week or two, or even if today is your first day, it's okay. You can pick up with us. But I challenge you to be here next week as we finish this series. In this series, we have 4 big ideas that we're looking at. And in week one, we talked about how less is more, and that better is one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Last week, our family pastor, Mike Garland, spoke, and he talked to us about how stress is bad and that the borrower is servant to the lender. Well, today we're going to discuss how giving is good, and then next week we'll talk about why tomorrow matters. So I want you to participate a little bit right now. If you've been here in the other weeks, you're kind of getting used to this. I'm going to say these big ideas, and I'd love for you to repeat them back to me because I want them to be ingrained in us. So as I say less is more, I want you to repeat it back and as we go through. Good? Everybody ready? Here we go. Less is more. Man, that was good. And it's like 11 o'clock on Sunday. You guys are awake. Way to go. All right. Stress is bad. Perfect. And giving is good. And tomorrow matters. Perfect. So today we're discussing why giving is good. In the book of Acts, chapter 20, verse 35, we read a verse that says, "You should remember the words of the Lord Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive." So repeat that after me. It is more blessed to give than to receive. All right, we didn't do too good on that. We're going to try that one again. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Perfect. You're killing it. But this is a difficult concept. I'm going to be real with you. This is a difficult concept because it is fun to receive, right? Like, it's fun. It's a good time when you get to receive things. It's a blessing to receive. You know, I saw this video on YouTube a while back, and so I had to bring it here today. And it's of this kid that receives a Christmas present, and he displays, perhaps a bit over the top, how exciting it can be to receive a present. So let's watch this clip together.
I think they're excited. Yes! 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 Now we can go to Grace from Blockbuster and it. Yeah, you can open up.
It's exciting to receive. I can't say that I have ever been that over the top excited to receive something, but it's definitely great to receive. You know, as we think about how exciting it is to receive and what a blessing it is to receive, And we think about the importance of the passage that we just read from the book of Acts, where it says it's more blessed to give than to receive. It's more. It's more blessed. And this isn't my opinion. This isn't a disciple's opinion. These are the words of Jesus Christ saying it is more blessed to give than to receive. Now, I've been appreciative of the things that I've received in life, though. You know, there are things that I've enjoyed receiving. There are things that I've enjoyed being able to purchase. And I remember when Nat and I first got married. And, when you first get married, you're first starting out, you don't typically have a whole lot. You know, you're kind of getting into your first little place. And I remember our first place, it was this 700 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment, but it was ours. And we were excited about it. And I remember the first week that we were in this place, you know, we had a 19-inch, like old school bubble tube television, and it was propped up on a Rubbermaid tub. And that's what we had in our living room, and that was ours. But then we walked into Sam's Club. And Sam's Club, I don't know if you know this, but in every Sam's Club, there's like all the TVs that are out on display. And then if you walk around the corner, they have like open box deals where they take like hundreds of dollars off the price. If you don't believe me, go to Sam's Club today. You may go home with a new TV. And so this is what we did. We went in there and there was an open box deal. And so we asked, they didn't even have a price on it yet. And so we were able to actually, I think, negotiate a little bit on what the price of this was. And so we brought home a 52-inch Vizio flat screen TV. It's still in our bedroom today, 9 years later. But we brought this thing home to our little apartment, and we didn't even have a wall really big enough for it. And as we were talking about this past week, Nat was digging through like old hard drives and stuff to find a picture, because I wanted to bring a picture of this TV in our apartment to you guys. But Natalie found even better than that. If you remember the show MTV Cribs from back in the day, apparently we wanted our friends and family to see how we were living now that we were married, and we were proud of this TV. And so we shot an MTV Cribs little clip. And so here it is. We can watch it together.
Hello and welcome to our crib. We have Natalie's guitar here and our nice deal we got at Walmart on our little TV table. This is a solid wood TV table. It has to be strong because it has to be able to hold 52 inches of HD goodness. I know it might blind your eyes looking through the camera at this, but that is what a 52-inch television looks like. My guitar there. We have our nice big windows here to look out to the trees. I came home one day and Natalie surprised me with these, and I'll even show you what they do. These are our ottomans, so that we can kick back like this to watch the 52 inches of goodness.
Man, how about those sideburns, right? I was looking good back in the day. Think about those times. Remember when you were able to make a big purchase. When there was something that you thought might be a long ways away, but you were able to make it happen, and the sense of pride and the sense of enjoyment that you had with that. You know, I remember a few years after that, Nat and I bought a 1978 Corvette. And it was the 25th anniversary special edition Corvette. And I loved this Corvette. It was so cool. It had the glass top on it that you could take off. And we could cruise around, and we used to live by this river with these winding roads, and so we're able to get out and just cruise and go for hours and have a great time in this Corvette. I remember the day we purchased it, and just that sense of pride, that feeling that we were able to buy this, that we were able to own it, that it was ours. There was a great feeling that came along with being able to purchase and to be able to own. It's exciting to receive. It's fun to receive. It's a blessing to receive. And yet Jesus says it's even more blessed to give than to receive. You know, I think that what that tells us is that when we give, it impacts someone's life. You know, I don't think Jesus has taken anything away from how cool it is to get stuff, from how cool and awesome it is to receive. I don't think he's taking anything away from that. I think so often we try to act like, oh, well, that must mean that receiving stinks. Receiving doesn't stink. Receiving's awesome. But when we can give, when we can bless someone, when we can do something, that's even greater than when we receive. I have an acquaintance that years ago had just started a church. And when he first started out, the church was really, really small. And so he wasn't even really hardly drawing any sort of salary from the church. And his wife's car broke down. And when they went to the repair shop and they told him how much it was going to cost to fix this car, it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money. But for them, where they were at the time, it was a whole lot. As he tells this story, he says that when the repair shop guy told him what it was going to be, he said, I must have worn my fear on my face. He said, because as he told me what the number was and the look on my face set in, he said that the repair guy looked at him and said, I know who you are. I recognize you. My daughter recently attended your church, and your church helped her out, and it's changed her life. So, Mr. Preacher, this one's on me. This one's on the house. He talks about what a blessing it was to receive that in that moment. And he says a few years later, he was in a shop again, getting some repairs done. As he said, as he was waiting in line to pay, there was a lady that was in line in front of him. And said, as the lady's talking to the guy at the counter, and the guy at the counter tells her what it's going to be to get her minivan fixed, so she just begins to break down in tears and says, just a minute. She steps out of line and she picks up the phone and is calling what he assumes to be her husband. And she begins to tell him how much it's going to cost. And as she's crying on the phone, and she says, we don't have that kind of money, but what are we going to do? This is the van that gets our babies around. What are we going to do? And so this preacher steps up to the man at the counter and he says, hey, can I pay for her repair? And the guy says, well, I guess, but why would you do that? And he said, because I was in a situation one time where I couldn't afford a repair that needed to be done, and somebody took care of it for me, and I'm in a much better financial place right now. And he said, I can pay that repair for her, and I want to do that today, but you have to promise me that you won't tell her that it was me. And so the repair shop guy says, okay, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds pretty awesome. And so when the woman gets off the phone, she steps back up, and as soon as she starts to talk, the repair shop guy says, hey, just want to let you know, your car's getting taken care of today. And the lady says, what do you mean my car's getting taken care of? You just told me it was going to be X. And he said, yeah, don't worry about it. God loves you. God sent somebody to take care of it. And so your car's getting taken care of free of charge today. And so the woman steps out of line again, picks up her phone, and calls her husband back. And in that moment, she starts to cry again, but it's different tears. It says, husband or honey, you're not going to believe what just happened. God just took care of us. The pastor, he says that, he hung around long enough to hear that phone call, and then he slipped out. And he says, even as great of a feeling it was on the day when his car got taken care of, when their bill got paid, it didn't compare at all to the feeling he had on the day when he was able to help and bless that lady, because it's more blessed to give than to receive. In the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11, we read that you will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. Anyone who's ever been generous, who's ever had the opportunity to help somebody out, knows how great of a feeling that it is. I love that we have such a generous church that we have multiple people that are saying, I want to help somebody here. There's so many generous people that are saying, I want to help somebody. If there's somebody that Financial Peace can help, I want to cover their charge. I want to take care of that because I know what's going to happen in that class. I know the freedom that is going to come to those families that are in that class. And so I want to be able to bless. I want to be generous. I want to give. Such a good feeling to be able to give. Now, I wonder sometimes, knowing how good it feels to be able to give, why don't we give more? Why aren't we more generous? And I think there's three reasons why we don't give more. And the first one is that sometimes we're just struggling. Sometimes the money is tight. It just isn't there, and we can't do the things that we want to do. Now, I think the second reason is that we've seen this message abused. We've all turned on the TV and seen the TV preacher there in his $1,000 suit, sweating profusely for some reason. And he's begging for money. And he's saying, if you'll just sow $100 into the ministry today, if you'll sow $100 into the ministry today, I promise you that you're going to get $1,000 back in return. And wait, there's more. I'm going to rub this sweaty handkerchief and I'm going to put it in the mail and send it to you, and you'll even be more blessed. Like, we've all seen it abused. We've been to the church. As I shared earlier during our giving time, I was at a church one time with my brother, and we were there to see one of our friends play some music in a worship band. And they'd already taken like the offering once, like we do, like pass the plates and stuff like that. And then a pastor came on stage and said, there's some of you that you need freedom tonight, and you need healing, and you need this, and you need that, and the way you're going to get it is by giving more money. And so the band is going to sing another song, and while this band sings another song, what I want you to do is get out of your seat and run to the stage and throw your money on the stage. And I was like, what? And next thing you know, the band starts playing, and people get up and start coming to the stage and like launching money onto the stage. And the pastor's there like scooping it up. And now the craziest thing, well, that was all crazy, but the funniest thing about that is my brother and I are sitting there watching this, and my brother, well, we tend to do things sometimes that we think are funny but get us into trouble. And so he nudges me and he says, hey, watch this. Anytime, if you have a sibling and they say, hey, watch this, or if you're a parent and you have kids and you hear one of your kids say, hey, watch this, you know what's about to happen is either going to be hilarious or bad or both. And so my brother says, hey, watch this. And so he stands up in the pew and starts screaming at the top of his lungs, Jesus, give me $1 million. I want $1 million. Jesus, give me $1 million. So he starts screaming this, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to get thrown out of this church. But instead, people started like laying hands on him and saying like we're agreeing for your $1 million, brother. You just need to, like, they were encouraging him to run down and throw money on the stage, because in their minds, if he would have gone down and thrown money on the stage, that he was going to get his $1 million. We've all seen this abused. That's not the way it works. The third reason that we don't give more is because I think sometimes we have a scarcity mindset. We think that there is a limited amount. But when we believe that there is a limited amount, it kind of triggers something in us that makes us feel like we have to protect what we have. But without sounding like the crazy TV evangelist or like the pastor screaming at people to come throw their money on the stage, I do believe that God has more. And I do believe that when I give, that He has more to give. And I do believe that when I'm helpful, and I do believe that when I have the opportunity, and I take that opportunity to bless someone, I believe that He blesses. I love in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 24, the way that the Message version has this passage lined out. They say it, the world of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. When we talk about the promises of God, when we talk about the things in Scripture that God promises us, I believe this is one of them. I believe that this is a promise. That the one who blesses others, not to get recognition, not to puff up their chest and say, oh, I did that, but the one who is truly generous and the one who is able to bless other people is abundantly blessed. And I know we don't use that word abundantly very often in our everyday language, but basically what it means is just a whole lot. Really awesome. You see, giving is good. And I can say that without any reservation, and I can say it with all passion that giving is good. You know, we talked about 3 reasons why sometimes we aren't as generous as we might like to be, but I want us to focus the rest of our time together today on 3 ways for us to grow in our generosity. I believe the first way for us to grow in our generosity is to trust God with the tithe. And as we look through the Bible, we find this word in there, ma'aser, which literally translates to 1/10. And so as we look at passages such as Leviticus 27:30, it says 1/10, or what it would say is ma'aser, 1/10 of the produce of the land, whether grain from the fields or fruits from the trees, belongs to the Lord and must be set apart to Him as holy. So this ma'aser, this 1/10, or this first, is set apart. It belongs to God. And so for us, what this means is that when we make $100, if we have $100, that God is asking for us to return $10 of it back to Him, to set it apart, for it to become literally holy money. And by doing this, we worship God. We honor Him. In the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 10, it says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Bring the whole ma'aser, bring the whole 1/10 into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much a blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. So it says, bring the whole tithe. Bring the whole ma'aser, bring the whole 1/10. Why should we do that? You know, I think that this verse speaks on multiple levels. It says, literally in there, it says, so that there may be food in my house. But I believe that this is speaking both physically and spiritually. You see, when we give, it provides for physical needs of people. But it also provides for the spiritual needs. You know, I've heard it said like this, and I think it sums it up best, to say we don't give to the church, we give through the church. All of us doing our part, all of us honoring God together, this helps people win. This is one of the best ways that we can win together. You know, as we look back at this passage, God says, test me. And when you read the Bible from cover to cover, this is the only verse in the entire Bible where God says, test me in something. I believe that as we test God, He will prove over and over again to be faithful. You see, when we give, it builds our faith in God's faithfulness. And you might be here today and you might say that, I can't do this. I don't have enough to be able to do this. Michael, you're doing this series and you're telling me that you want me to get out of debt, but at the same time, you're also telling me that you want me to give 1/10 of what I have? I can't do that. I would have to completely rearrange my life to do this. And you're right. You will. You'll have to rearrange your life. That's the challenge. That's the test on our part. And that's the way that we test God, is by rearranging our life to center it on God and on Christ. That's a central theme of Christianity. You know, I'm challenging you to do this if you're not. But let me tell you, I know it is kind of impossible to think that today you wouldn't be doing this and that tomorrow or next week that you would, because that's a really, really big step. And I understand that. So what I would say is make it a goal. Make it a goal. Begin that way. Make it a goal to get there. And make steps, make changes, do what you can today to begin walking down that road. So the first way to grow in our generosity is to trust God with a tithe. The second way to grow in our generosity is to plan your generosity. It's our nature to plan to acquire things. I have plans. I have dreams. Honestly, what I'd love to do is I would love in the next couple of years to purchase a condo on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And now the plan would be is that throughout most of the year we would rent that, and we would pay the mortgage off of the weekly rentals for people vacationing there. It would allow us to have a vacation place to visit a couple times a year, and by the time I retire, the mortgage will be completely paid off based off of people renting it. So then when Nat and I retire, we can sell everything that we have, we can move there and live mortgage-free for the rest of our life. That's my plan. I want to make it happen. We make plans to acquire, whether it's homes or cars. And my wife, Natalie, she is the queen of finding deals. Like when she decides that there's something that she wants, like she hunts it like it's prey. Like it's kind of crazy and kind of cool. Like she goes for the kill on whatever it may be, but she always gets deals because once she decides that she wants something, like she does all the research on it. She knows exactly how much it is every place that it's carried, and she knows who's going to be running a sale ad, and she knows who's going to be doing what, and she's going to find this at the best price, and it's going to be the best deal that we can possibly get. I wonder, what if we took that mindset to our generosity? What if instead of making plans to acquire, or alongside of our plans to acquire, what if we made plans to be generous? What if we made plans to give? The book of Isaiah chapter 32 verse 8 says, "But generous people plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm in their generosity." What if we look for ways to be more generous? How's the 100-thing giveaway challenge going? If you weren't here on week 1, I challenged everyone to go through their houses and try to find 100 things that you could box up and give away. And as you're doing that, to take pictures of it and to post them on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and hashtag them the River Abilene, or hashtag them the 100-thing giveaway. I've already seen a lot of really cool pictures online of people doing that. I've got text messages of people that have already given away lawnmowers and given away like big ticket items, not just like clothes and things like that. And it's been really, really cool. I encourage you this week and next, as we're leading up to the finale of this, continue to do that. But what if we look for ways to be generous? I heard of a family that decided that they wanted to plan their generosity. And so what they started doing is on top of their tithe worship amount that they were giving, they decided to set $20 a month aside just to be generous with. And so this money was for if you're in line and you're waiting and somebody comes up short, you can say, "Oh, here, let me cover that." Or if there's some sort of natural disaster that they had, there was an earthquake, a hurricane, something like that, they would already have money that was free and available to be able to give to help that. And over the years, as they've begun to do it, they've enjoyed being able to give. They've enjoyed being able to help people so much. They've enjoyed being able to plan that generosity so much that number has increased. So now this family is at the point where on top of their tithe, they have $200 set aside every single month just to be generous. They plan to be generous, and they stand firm in their generosity. Now, there are many great organizations that do work all over the globe. One that I've given to since I was a kid was Compassion International. And Compassion International does an incredible job of going into countries and finding little kids that wouldn't normally have food, wouldn't normally have an education, wouldn't normally have medical care. And they go in and they give them all of those things. They supply them with food. They supply them with medical care. They give them an education, and they teach them about Jesus. And so I started sponsoring it when I was in high school. My brother and I got a little boy together that we sponsored and sponsored him through. Natalie and I have sponsored many kids in the course of our relationship. This is a great organization that does a lot of awesome work on $30-something a month. St. Jude's Children's Hospital is another one. Their research that they do is impacting so many families. And it's such a good place to be able to give and to know that the money that you give isn't just going to pay for somebody sitting in a boardroom, but to know that the money that you give is helping save children's lives. Or locally, here in town, Love and Care Ministries, who does such an incredible job of reaching out and helping so many people right here in our community. And there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands more. If you just Google nonprofit organizations, the list, you're not going to read all of them. The organizations are there, the people are there. And I think a lot of times we try to reinvent the wheel, but we don't have to, because most times there's already somebody doing it. They just need support. We can plan to be generous. So we trust God with a tithe, we plan our generosity, and the third way I believe that we can grow in our generosity is to start being generous now. Philemon chapter 1 verse 6 says, "And I am praying that you will put into action the generosity that comes from your faith as you understand and experience all the good things we have in Christ." It says put it into action. That means right now. You know, I tried a new restaurant in town recently, and they have this thing on the menu, and it's called the Machete Quesadilla, and it is huge. It's like 3 foot long. You know, how would one tackle such a large quesadilla? But I tell you, for me, it was simple. You see, I started at this end, and I took one bite at a time, and I moved my way to this end until I finally finished it. Now, there's no way that I could pick up that entire thing at one point and shove it into my mouth. That just wouldn't work. But if I start at one end and I know where I'm going and I take one bite, I'm able to finish it. That's how this whole thing works. We have to take the first bite. We have to take the first step. As the passage in Philemon says, it says that our generosity comes from our faith. So when we have faith, when we come to a place of believing in God, of becoming a Christian, of having faith become an important thing in our life, generosity is a part of that. Generosity is placed inside of every believer. So as a child of God, you have generosity already within you. God made you to be generous. So our part, what we have to do is put that generosity in action. That's what the text is calling us to do. Not to manufacture generosity, but to act on the generosity that God has already placed inside of each and every one of us. You see in John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish, but have everlasting life." God isn't asking us to do anything that He hasn't done first. Now, when we look at that passage, you'll notice that I capitalized, underlined, and italicized the main word in that passage. He gave. He gave more than He asked of any of us. He gave His Son, Jesus Christ, for us. We have received the greatest gift that has ever been given. You know, when we talk about paying it forward, this is the ultimate paying it forward. So how do we do all of this? We trust God with our first and with our best, believing that He's going to bless the rest. And we plan to be generous in our lives, and we stand firm in that generosity, and we start doing it now. We don't wait for the time to be right, because if we wait for the time to be right, if we wait until we have more, if we wait until circumstances change, we're never going to get there. It has to start now. We know what God has done. We know what He gave, and our only response is to be a blessing in the lives of other people. Less is more. Stress is bad. Giving is good. And tomorrow matters. And it's always more blessed to give than to receive. Let's pray. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the sermon that you just watched. I'd like to personally invite you to come and worship with us at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings at the River of Life Church. We have a great kids program. We have anchor groups that meet every week. We got a place for you to plug in and people to love you, a place for you to come as you are and to belong. We invite you to come and worship with us. We'll see you soon.